Welcome back to Jessica's Craft Time. My name's Jessica, and today we're working on our chocolate room. I've got this quite sped up today because there's a lot of repetitive things in here. And if you want some tips about what products I use, head over and look at last week's episode 3, and I talked a bit about that. So I'm just putting the cart together here. I've got my baby wipe out, I've got my tacky glue, and it's one of my favorite things to put together, the furniture or the wood parts. So I'm just putting some tacky glue on my pieces of wood and gluing them all together according to the diagram. As you can see, I moved a little bit out of the way. It had kind of moved a little bit, and this is why I recommend that you put together a piece of wood or furniture all in one go, because if you hadn't have noticed that, you'd walked away, let it dry, you're not going to be able to move it again. This little cart does take me 2 goes to do because we had to stick the wheels on, and then I had to stick some fabric around the top of it. I wanted the wheels to kind of dry a little bit before I do the fabric. So I'll put them on and put this to the side. I'm just lining up the wheels with one of the crossbars to make sure they're all the same height on the cart. So I'm just going to put that aside and we'll get started on some of the other decorations. So there was a couple of items in here I missed in the instructions when I set all my things up, and we should have actually made 2 of these. I'll make another one later and I'll show you how I do it all from scratch. But I'm just rolling up 12 little balls of foil, and these are going to be like Ferrero Rochers, little chocolate covers, foil covered chocolates, and they're going to go inside the box. So I'm just rolling them up so I can get to my other pieces next. Now, with these are one of the ones that I said in my last episode that it's best to think about how it's going to go together. So I've not cut out all those little diamonds or triangles. I just scored it and folded it over. But the top of this love heart has actually already, I just used the glue on both of them, the double-sided tape. I had already stuck tape on it before I cut it out, so the back is covered in tape. It doesn't matter if the middle's covered in tape and you don't actually stick anything on it. And then I'm just manipulating the outside bit of the box around the edge, tucking them in as I go. I did find it was a little bit long, so I just snipped it off so we could get more of a point on that little bottom of the love heart there. So that's I think that was the top of the box. Oh no, that was the bottom of the box. Top, I don't know. So I've scored it yet again. You can use any pointy tool. And if you score it, it makes it a lot easier to fold your bits of paper. I did work from the point at the bottom of the heart and work my way around, pushing all the little bits and pieces in. Now, to give you an idea on how long it took to complete all of what you're going to see today, it took about 2.5 hours from getting all the bits and pieces together. There's about an hour and a half it took to actually assemble it all, and the hour to get all the little bits and pieces together. So each page in one of these miniature room instruction books takes me around about 2 to 3 hours from start to finish. Now, this is where I've put my tape on the back of my template, and I just cut it straight out. That way I'm not trying to put tape onto the little round thing. I'm not trying to, I just find it easier. Tape the template on and then cut it out. Things don't slip. Now this has to form like a little pyramid kind of thing of beads. It really just said to, use whatever colors you wanted. And I just kept adding more glue, adding more beads, because the beads stuck to the tweezers and then they stuck to my fingers, and I don't think it was quite the right pyramid tower that it was going to be. I'm using a toothpick and my patty pan or my cupcake paper wrapper, which I pour my glue onto, and the toothpick just helps me maneuver the glue around a little bit, and I use I use this quite a lot in this episode. Now, bows. If you've watched any of my past episodes, I cannot tie a bow. I struggle, I struggle, I struggle, I struggle, I struggle, I struggle. That's all I can say. I give up trying to tie bows with tiny bits of ribbon. In the end, I ended up folding it over and using my tweezers that are like a grip. You press them to open them, and once you let go, they hold it. And then I use my tweezers to pull it through. I just have so much trouble with these little bits of ribbon. And then pull and twist and pull until you get something that's quite tight in the middle. It's not going to come undone, and trim off the ends and a big dollop of glue to stick it to the tower. So next we're going to create another little counter, and I'm using my tacky glue yet again. A little bit of glue on the side. Sometimes I squeeze the glue directly onto the pieces. Other times I squeeze the glue onto my paper. This one I'm using the Tombow to add the paper to it, and the reason I use the Tombow rather than the tacky is because it's not going to bubble the paper, and then I just manipulate it. It is a liquid glue, so you do have a little bit of time to move things around if it's not stuck correctly. And we've got a little sign on the front here, and that's that done to dry and decorate once we're finished. Okay, so we're coming back to the cart that we started with, and the ribbon was a little bit long, so I trimmed that off. Now this, I just put glue all the way around. May not have been the best way. The ribbon didn't really want to stick, and then it stuck to my fingers, and then it didn't want to stick, and then it stuck, and then it didn't, and I kept pulling and pulling, and we eventually got it stuck on, and it's fine. It stayed stuck. It was just getting the initial stick on and then glue all over the fingers. So I do recommend a baby wipe. Now these are a couple of little chocolate boxes, so they're very simple to put together, making sure that you score any of the parts on it that it needs to fold. And then I just put a bit of tape on the back and was able to fold all the little bits in, pull off that tape and glue it shut. It's a very flat box, so it wasn't an issue. Now, sorry, we kind of jumped there a little bit. I got a phone call, interrupted my videoing, but I just made the last box there. There was 3 of them that we made all together. Now we're making a little bowl of candy. When I'm using this, we're sticking a metal bit to a plastic bit. I use my E6000 glue. This one was, I emptied my first E6000 little tube today. I just find it adheres better than what the tacky glue does, and I need to fill the center with beads. So all I did was just put a heap of glue on the inside of that little bead there and dumped all my beads in, move it to the side, and we're on to our next one already. This was a challenge. This is creating the chairs and the table for like a little table and chairs. I don't know why I said 4. So I cut all my bits of metal. Somewhere I ended up cutting wrong because I didn't have a long enough piece for something I needed. You just had to sort of try and flatten the metal out. And then the bit of paper there with the funny shapes on it, that's what we're going to try and manipulate our wire to get the right length, like the right shape. I do find wire, even with the E6000, bent wire can be quite hard to stick. Excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. So we're just cutting all the different size wire bits that I needed here. Now I've got to manipulate it to go into this sort of shape, which it's really good that they printed off this like template. It made it a lot easier. It gave you a guide of where you needed to be. And the little cushions, base of the chair cushions go into it. Now this is where I'm cutting out a template out of fabric. So what I do is I put the double-sided tape on it, and then I showed you quickly there that I'd actually rubbed it up against my clothing for a bit, so it got a fair bit of lint on it. And the reason I did that is you don't want the template permanently stuck on the back. You need it, I don't need it as tacky as what normal double-sided tape, and I rub it on my clothing just to take some of the tackiness out. But I find if you stick the fabric to the template, it's a lot easier to cut out, especially with the small pieces. They don't move around and you get a cleaner cut. So now we're doing the chairs, and it was after this point that I almost gave up on these, trying to decide what I needed to do, what pieces I need, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need this thin wire to make this V thing here. So I'm just creating the back of the chairs as well, and just manipulating the wire to get, almost a rough shape. And then that's the small wire. So all my bits of wire are going to be manipulated. They're not all correct in their size. Some are a little bit bigger than they need to be, but it's easier to trim that down later. So I've got my E6000 glue again, and I tried to put both the legs on, but it didn't work. It just wouldn't stay. Oh, and then I realized that I hadn't actually glued my seat in. So I glued that in and tried to put the legs on. I tried to put both legs on at once and it didn't work. What I ended up doing is putting the smaller legs on first, letting it dry and coming back and finishing it. But to be able to hold it upright, because it just would not stay, I got my heat gun out and I added a little bit of heat to the glue just so it dried a little bit quicker. It wasn't 100% dry, but just enough that it was tacky enough to actually hold the wire in place. Finally, I got it done. And then I'm like, no, they need to dry and we'll come back to them in a second. So I thought we'll start doing the umbrella. And that was just a matter of scoring all the edges there. It took a little bit of time to go around and score all the bits. And then all the bits on the top of the umbrella. And then it's got these little bits on the side that need to come down. So score them and pop some double-sided tape on the grey bit there. And that will bend round into your umbrella. And I just folded them all before I stuck it together. Because they didn't need to be folded, but they needed to be bent a little bit. And then we needed to cut just a little hole out of the top so that the umbrella pole. Now we've got this tiny little one, and this is for the top of the umbrella. Luckily this one didn't have as many to score because it was pretty little. But I've just used my double-sided tape again. And that's those two done, ready to be attached to the pole. Now we're going to make the upright for the pole, and I'm just sticking it in some glue. And I meant to put wire around the edge of this brown one, but for some reason I must have cut something wrong and my wire wasn't big enough. Yet again, homemade, handmade, no one will ever know. I'm not putting the wire on the brown table. I'm sure it'll be fine. So I just put a lot of glue in it, and yet again I had to let it dry, and I just had to find something that would support it while it was drying so it didn't fall over too much. So I've grabbed some more green trays, and we're going to let that, and I went off and I let all of that dry, and I'll come back to it now. So it had been some time between when I'd completed these, and I just checked that it was kind of up the right way and standing. Now we go to attempt to put the chairs on, the back of the chairs. And I put the E6000. I just wanted to make sure they stood up as well as I could, and I realized the fabric was in the way of the wood notches. So I cut the fabric off, popped them in my tray, because you all know that I love my little trays. Cut the trim off the back of the fabric here and pop the back of them on, and then just let them sit again. Fortunately, the second one kept falling over. The legs aren't quite right on the second one, but that's okay. It'll be fine. So then we'll put our umbrella together, and I've just put some glue in the top, and we need to pull the top one down and then the little one on top, and I just fiddled with it until I was happy with the way it was sitting and moved it off to the side to finish, to dry. So now we've got a little book that's going to go on the chair, and this is the same. score all your edges, and then just fold it and glue it together. The pages are meant to kind of be open, but I've found in the past when I've left them to open a bit, they've like sort of flipped all the way open that I didn't want to. So I heavily glued the back cover down, and then I did just put a little dabs of glue in between each page and sort of stuck it shut so that it wouldn't pop open on me. And now it was time to decorate, and I realized that when I went to decorate, I hadn't actually made one of these boxes, and I also realized later I hadn't made another chocolate box. So you'll get to see me doing those, and I must have knocked my camera because I'm slightly off camera again. Poor hubby kept trying to call me while I was doing this. I yelled at him, sorry. Like, I'm trying to video and nothing's working the way it should. You keep interrupting. So this one's a really easy one, even though I put the tape on it the wrong way to start with. You just seal it round so it becomes enclosed. I went to do it and went, oh, I put the tape on the wrong side. And then because I've got two big flaps and two smaller ones on each end, I just put a little bit of tape on one of the bigger flaps on each end, fold everything in, and then tape it shut. And that's worked really well with me for boxes like this in the past. So now we've got our little cart that we made, and it's just time to glue things on. I've used a mixture of the E6000 and the tacky glue. I had a little bit of everything on my tray there, so either works well, and I'm just smearing it all over the top because it was only a very small edge that I had to glue down there. Then we're up to the other little counter, and I'm just putting tape on the back of the chocolate boxes. Stick them down and then stick them to each other, whichever way you want to stick them. Then we've got our little thing of lollies or treats or chocolates, whatever it is, and our little box. And that one's done. So this is where I go to the, I'm sticking the book on the chair. And then I looked at the umbrella and I'm like, I'm not quite right. I haven't quite got everything. Let's finish these chairs off and then we'll go and make the other bits I need to. So some E6000 just on the metal and sort of bending them to fit a bit better and making sure they sit on the tray so they don't fall off. Whoops, I forgot one. This is like a little sundae with a strawberry on top, and it's all just beads. So I used, I'm pretty sure I used the E6000 there. Put a little bit in the bottom, a little bit on the top, bead on the top, a little bit on the bottom of that, and stuck it to my little umbrella table. And then I went, oh no, I've got to make another chocolate box. Hang on, let's go and find all the bits for it. So this one I hadn't already taken the pieces out. So this is where I put the tape on the back of it, and that just makes it so much easier than trying to cut circle tape later and just cut the whole thing out. And it's already got the tape cut to the right size of it. And then it was just a matter of cutting the sides of each one out. These ones were even thinner than the Love Heart one. So I left the top of it on while I trimmed the little like bits that you fold under and stick on. It just gave me a little bit more on the paper to cut, to hold on to, and then trim the top off. Just put a little bit of tape on your little foldy bits. And then you're good to go. I forgot to score it, so I'm like, damn, now I've got to score it away from everything. Scoring it really helps when you're trying to fold these little tiny tabs over. And then you do the same as the Love Heart. You find an edge and just start sticking it down. Your tweezers can help sometimes. Got to the end and stuck the end in. This one I freehand scored because the cover of the tape had already come off. So if I had to put a ruler on it, it would have stuck to the back of the ruler. But you just fold it round, and then I filled it with, then we've got to get the chocolate balls. So we've got the foil paper, and what I did was I measured it with my little pointy tool, and because it's like an elf foil, it's not very thick and it tears very easily. I kind of just scored it really with my pointy tool, and then I just tore the little squares apart. You can see it just tears fairly easily. And then we've got to roll each of them into balls. But this time, because I was doing it on the spot, I filled the base of my chocolate box with my tacky glue, moved it around with a toothpick so it covered the whole bottom. So as I did each ball, I was able to just drop it straight into the box. So I think we've got 12 little balls for each one. Lots of chocolates. Yummy little chocolate box. And then this one just gets stuck on the table. I'll use my tweezers to sort of manipulate them, get them into the right spot. Bit of glue on the bottom, bit of glue all over the top of the box because I'm like, I don't know where it's going to actually make contact to glue on. Just popped a whole lot of glue in there, and we've got our little table together. So I cleared everything out of the way, and this is what we made today. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed watching this miniature room come together, and I hope to see you in a video next week. Take care for now. Bye.